Welcome back to another episode of Level Up. Today's question comes from Joanne Kim Chan. And Joanne asks us, what are the startup costs for a group practice? I'm excited that you're asking this, Joanne, because my thought is you might be starting a group practice or already have at this point. Level Up is a series all about you where we, Kate and Katie, from the Private Practice Startup, answering your most burning questions about private practice. And before we dive in,
yes. Well, hi, Joanne. That's so exciting. Congratulations. We're excited to answer your question in just a moment. We want to say thanks to TherapyNotes for being a great support to Startup Nation and sponsoring this series. If you all are in need of an EHR plus telehealth platform, definitely check them out for your first 2 months for free. You can use code PPS as in Private Practice Startup and go to therapynotes.com. So this is a really good question. And gosh, I have been knee deep in it for the past year. We've been expanding into our new location in Coral Springs to serve the west side of Broward County. We've had our Fort Lauderdale practice for about a decade now, actually just over a decade now. So congratulations, Joanne. This is really exciting for you. And there's a lot of work that goes into expanding into a group practice from a solopreneur. So I know you're already in practice, and I'm assuming you are expanding and not quite sure exactly where you are in the process, but that is so exciting. So you kind of have to take a step back first, and it's really good to do some of the financial prep work. So it's great you're asking this question because you want to know how much money are you going to invest here, and whether you have money saved or you're, having another way of being able to fund this. It is a process, and it takes some time to start getting that return on investment. So you want to think about the essentials, right? If you're expanding into a group practice and it's a brick and mortar location, you're obviously going to need an office space that has multiple rooms. So do your research, and it's great to work with a real estate agent who's a commercial real estate agent who can help you in negotiating the lease process, because there's a lot of things that they can think about that you might not know about. So the lease negotiation process is the first step. We do have a podcast episode from Michael Feuerman. He's my commercial real estate agent here in town. He's excellent. We'll pop that in as a resource for you. And once you have your office space, you're going to have to make your first, last, and security deposit. So there's a hefty down payment when you are securing an office space. So that's going to be one of the bigger expenses. And then as you're working through your lease, depending on how long your term is, your lease can be pretty extensive, and you want to make sure that you're having a real estate attorney review the lease. That is going to be another hefty expense to be able to work with someone who can fine tune, know all the terminology, and help you to negotiate the best possible terms of that lease. So that's going to be a next step in some of the financial startup cost. And then sit down and actually look at how many rooms do you have? What furniture do you want to have in each room? And what is your budget for each particular therapy room that you have, whether you have a conference room, what's going in your waiting room, in your lobby, what's going in your kitchen or your break room area. It really depends on what the floor plan looks like. If you're going to be working with an architect, you're going to have cost for doing the actual build out and having the architect draw up the plans. And then if you're doing a build out, you're going to be working with a GC, a general contractor, and the team. And when you work in the beginning of the process, when you're negotiating your lease, you will also be, if you're doing a build out of your office, negotiating some of the shared cost of the build out. And depending on your real estate agent that you're working with, an attorney, they will help guide you through that process. So you'll probably have some amount that your landlord is helping with, depending on how many renovations you're making. Maybe you're moving into a place that really doesn't need any, or maybe you have an online practice and it's just not brick and mortar at all, and you don't have to worry about those high overhead expenses. So it's really thinking about the office design, and I'm just going to speak to this from a brick and mortar standpoint. So you think about the office design. You also want to think about your systems and the technology that you need in order to run the practice, the EHRs, depending on your business model. Do you need an EHR for every team member, or will they be having their own if they're independent contractors? So there's a lot of things to think through depending on your business model, your setup, and really thinking about your first year of expenses and planning for that. And you want to make sure that you have savings so that you can cover your cost of rent for a few months if something were to happen. So we highly recommend using Profit First. It's great to be able to get into the habit of building a savings account so that you can if you have a crisis in your business, or we go through a pandemic, or something like that happens that's unexpected, or a natural disaster happens, a hurricane comes through, an earthquake, these things happen. You want to make sure that you're prepared and you can withstand a few months of being able to pay for your overhead expenses. So there's a lot of prep work, a lot of planning that goes into this. And of course, having a marketing budget is super, super, super important. You want to have a strategy for marketing, and you also want to have a budget for that, because as you're growing into a group practice, marketing is going to be a huge aspect of that, to make sure that you're having calls come in and clients come in so that you can start building and digging yourself out of the investment hole of starting a private practice, because it is a hefty amount of income and expense there, but the rewards can pay off in dividends over time. So it is a process. I know I just threw a ton of information at you, Katie. I'm sure you have some ideas that you want to chime in on as well. So take it from here.
You jumped on the marketing, and definitely having a marketing budget is essential, because that's going to help fund your practice, grow your practice, etc. And also too is looking at what it is you're currently doing that's working and how can you expand that. Working with someone who can do a financial projection or a financial planner or a financial budget, and see what it is that you do now and how many people you're bringing on and what you can project over a 5-year time plan, and review that stuff on a consistent basis so you can make tweaks. The other thing too is like hiring and outsourcing a lot of stuff, because if you're bringing on team members, you're going to need specialty pages and all of those things. So being able to outsource that stuff while you build the business. Great question. And we would love to help you guys build your business. We have a free playbook called Your Dream Private Practice. Kate and I are crazy passionate about helping therapists just like you build your dream practice. And we're going to add that into the resources link so you can grab that.
And we hope you're enjoying this series. Look for our Ask Us post. It comes out every Tuesday in our Facebook group, and you can pop your questions in there, and we'll be happy to answer them here. In the meantime, stay inspired. We're here cheering you on. See you next time.